update you. I'm Ryan, and your time is running short. To get the Irem cartridge for the Evercade, I haven't spoken about it yet, but while Evercade cartridges are great, they do have a habit of moving to the Legacy collection every once in a while. This basically means that the cartridge is now out of print, and one of the best collections for classic shmup fans, the Irem cartridge, will be moving to the Legacy collection very soon. This cartridge is one of the older ones in the Evercade arcade library, and has been around since late 2022, and as of March 2026, is now out of print. But don't worry, there are still copies available on some websites and on the second-hand market for a decent price, though you'll need to act fast if you want to secure this collection for your library. The Irem Arcade 1 cartridge is a collection of 6 classic arcade games that are a must for any arcade fan. But is this small library of games worth the price of entry when compared to other Evercade cartridges with more games? Let's take a look at the included games and why I think this is a fantastic collection you should pick up before it's too late. R-Type. This legendary 1987 shmup game is a staple for pretty much every fan of the genre, and has stood the test of time with sequels, spin-offs and compilations releasing as late as 2023. One of the early titans of the arcade shmup scene, R-Type is a horizontally scrolling action game with a challenging difficulty. While addictive for many, it can be a bit too difficult for newcomers to the shmup scene, but I feel that it really rewards you for investing time into it, and it feels great to finally beat that one section with the rotating turrets that you've been stuck on for far too long. Although, that's probably just me. Taking control of the R9, blast enemies and pick up a variety of power-ups that increase your blasting power, giving you a variety of attacks that really start to fill the screen in a fun way if you collect enough. Be careful, one hit sends you back to a previous checkpoint and makes you lose all power-ups rather than letting you carry straight on from where you died like most other shmups. While these checkpoints can be pretty far apart, you'll find one after most of the more challenging segments of a level. To make things a bit easier, as sometimes the screen can be literally filled with enemy bullets, you can use a powerful force orb to act as a shield by running into it. You can position this force orb at the front or back of your ship to take a bit of the heat off, and also it can float around by itself and blast enemies when not attached to your ship. Most of the enemies tend to explode in one hit, but there are more challenging enemies that are real bullet sponges. This is where the charge attack comes in. By holding down the fire button, you can charge up a super blast that not only does a lot of damage but also pierces enemies it manages to take down, letting you handle strings of enemy ships and the bigger guys with ease. The charge attack also comes in super handy when fighting bosses, as they often have a pretty small weak spot that needs precise timing and positioning to hit. By the way, the game starts out quite similar to regular shmups, but quickly changes into something a little bit freaky, as you quickly go from fighting enemy ships to piloting the R9 through an alien infestation, so there's quite a lot of variety in the levels. The music is also quite jamming, and despite being stuck on each level for quite a while, never once got dull. R-Type is an incredible shmup, and although there are many ports of the game, this is one of a few ways to collect the arcade original. In the Hunt. While most shmups tend to be set in the skies or in space, In the Hunt takes place under the waves of the ocean with you piloting the Granvia submarine. This stylish little vessel can fire up, down and to the side, with you battling an assortment of enemy submarines, planes, helicopters and ships. The screen has a really nice scroll range, and instead of auto-scrolling lets you choose your own pace, though you are encouraged to keep moving thanks to the timer at the bottom of the screen. In a way, this game feels a lot like a proto-Metal Slug in visuals and in gameplay, and it truly is, since the team who made this eventually went on to create the Metal Slug series. The visuals for this one are really fantastic, with both above water and below water being highly detailed, and thanks to the scroll range and enemy placements, both above and below the waves give you quite a good amount of visual variety while blasting your way through the levels. While this is quite a challenging game, the self-scrolling camera, ability to shoot most enemy projectiles, and being able to start a new life and continue from where you left off makes it great for beginners, even if a little overwhelming at times. There can be quite a lot of enemies and action happening on the screen at once, and it does lead to some slowdowns when things get a little bit too intense. One thing to note about the game's combat is that depth charges are dropped at the same time you launch missiles above you, which can make dealing with enemies below a little bit challenging, and to hit airborne enemies you have to completely surface the Granvia as your missiles don't breach the surface of the water. Boss fights feel like events in this one thanks to the high health pool, although I find the levels to be more challenging than the actual bosses. I think this would be a great shmup to start with on the system, especially if you're not too familiar with the genre before moving on to other less forgiving ones on the cartridge. I'd also recommend this one to any Metal Slug fans out there, as you can 100% see the origins of Metal Slug in this game. Lightning Swords. Taking a brief break from shmups, let's head to feudal Japan for our next game with lightning swords, and to make things special, this game was exclusive to the arcade until this cartridge was released, making it the only way of owning it officially. Unless you want to buy yourself a whole arcade cabinet, that is. Released in 1991, this side-scrolling action game sees you embark on a quest of vengeance after your princess is taken down by a band of enemy samurai. Relatively simple, with one button for attacks and the D-pad to move and jump, hack and slash your way across 5 unique stages and take revenge of those responsible for the princess's death. You can charge up your attacks by holding down the attack button, and while holding you can also block a limited number of attacks before taking damage. Fully charging and releasing the attack button sends a wave of energy across the screen, giving you a much needed mid-range attack in addition to your katana slashes. Most of the basic enemies are taken out in one hit from the katana, although outside of the very basic enemies you really want to be charge attacking and blocking every opportunity. Not only can you block, but you also have the health bar, making this one quite friendly in terms of difficulty. Each of the stages has a great setting, keeping things interesting as you fight your way through ruins, ships, caves and more. At the end of each level is a unique boss encounter, but all need different tactics to beat thanks to their unique attack patterns. Although the game is simple in its controls, it has a surprising amount of depth thanks to the way it handles tougher enemies, bosses and stage designs. And while it'd be a little bit easier to take things slowly, there's a timer to encourage you to keep moving and fighting. The timer can be increased through pickups found in lanterns and crates, and get this, you can even find extra heals. For an arcade game of this era, that's especially generous and I love it. Lightning Swords is a must for arcade collectors, as this is the only way to officially own a copy of the game, but it's also a fun casual arcade experience that's a nice breath of fresh air after playing the harder shmup titles on the cartridge. Battle Chopper. Battle Chopper is a deceptively cute little action game where you take on the role of Mr. Heli, a cute little helicopter, but for some reason has legs, and blast your way through a variety of stages while collecting cash crystals to buy power-ups for your little helicopter. The graphics and audio of this one are incredibly charming, and it reminds me quite a lot of Fantasy Zone, although where this one differs is that it has a more traditional shmup level design. These levels are quite long, unlike R-Type only have a few checkpoints that you respawn at in each level, so if you're stuck on one spot in particular you have to keep at it R-Type style to make it through. But thanks to it not being an auto-scroller, you can take your time and get as many power-ups as you can afford to help you on your way. Just keep in mind that enemies do seem to infinitely respawn. This is quite a challenging little game despite being able to take a lot of hits before exploding, with the screen filling with bullets quite rapidly if you don't act fast enough when certain enemies are on screen. Everything about this game makes you think you're in for a nice casual time, but while there are much harder shmups than this, there are also quite a lot that are easier. I find this to be a good middle ground in terms of difficulty, but the only thing stopping me from recommending this for shmup beginners is the checkpoint system. Most power-ups and coins are found in destructible blocks you'll find around the level. Just take out the blocks with either your upward firing missiles, or your blaster, or your bombs. But keep in mind you can only drop bombs while walking on the ground, and it can be quite tricky to drop them where you'd need. Although not as great as the previous 3 titles, this one has quite a lot of charm thanks to its endearing graphics and music, but it is surprisingly tough for something so cheerful. 10-yard fight. Okay, let's do it. Let's get the weakest game out of the way at last. 10-Yard Fight is a 1983 American football game, and while an important title in sports game history thanks to it being a stepping stone from the even more archaic Atari sports games, it hasn't really stood the test of time. Now I admit I can be a little biased here, as not only do I not like sports games, but I also, being an English cat, have no idea about American football or how it's played, but if you're into both of those things you might have a fun time with this one. For me, the controls were a bit awkward and inconsistent though, as you're able to toss the ball to other players, and even though I constantly mash the buttons to do it, it only seems to happen a fraction of the time. Personally, even though this game is a very weak entry for me, I don't think it brings the cartridge's quality down thanks to how good the rest of the titles are. Moon Patrol. The final game on the cartridge is 1982's Moon Patrol, and I gotta admit, I thought I'd like this one a lot less than I actually did. This side-scrolling action game sees you controlling a moon rover driving across the surface of the planet through 5 different stages, fighting aliens and dodging obstacles along the way. You can increase the speed of the rover, jump and shoot horizontally and vertically at the same time. Though the horizontal range is a little low, you can use it to blast rocks that block your path. Despite its simplicity, it's a pretty fun and addictive little game that's a nice distraction from the other titles on the list, but I'll be honest, it's not one of those titles I can really sink a lot of time into and is more of a guess I'll play this for a few minutes to cool down from R-Type kind of deal. It's worth noting as well that this collection does feature dip switches in the main Evercade menu. I did kinda get things wrong in my Neo Geo video, as I mentioned dip switches only worked on those particular cartridges, but I want to correct myself, as dip switch support for Evercade games has been ongoing since March 2025. So, there are the 6 games on the Irem cartridge for Evercade. Despite it being a small selection compared to some Evercade carts, this is a true example of quality over quantity, with R-Type and In the Hunt both being amazing titles that carry the cartridge alone. To get Lightning Swords in its only home console release ever as well, that's the cherry on top of this cartridge for me. Don't let the small game selection and weaker games put you off from this cartridge though. It's great for both gamers and collectors. You do need to be quick though. This cartridge is now out of production and there's a limited selection available. Legacy Evercade cartridges also have a tendency to increase in price quite quickly, so definitely get this cartridge from a retailer before checking out secondhand websites. What's your favourite game on the cartridge? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and take it easy.